All right, good morning, Rabbi Sai. There are some halachas that the Olam tends to think are not so negaya to them. Oh, those halachas are not negaya to us. We don't need to learn those things. Those are for the other people. Or maybe these specifically are for the other side of the mechitza. Al Kaponim, Rabbi Sai, I'd like to start. I don't think we've done this for maybe years, or maybe we've never done it before. Is a gewaldige halacha, which is negaya, by the way, to every single one of us. As do you mind to get me a Cheder Gimel? Shkoyach. Mishabur Cheder Gimel. Just unbelievable. People call up the whole time. I'll give you an example, right? Thank you very much. I'll tell you like this. Waldig. So, a woman will call up, she just got married, and she says, Baruch Hashem, Chasana, Gewaldig, do I have to make a shechiyonu when I light the Haneiros of Shabbos Kodesh? So I said, no. But what do you mean? It's the first time I'm lighting candles in my life. Should make a shechiyonu on that. Shechiyonu v'kimonu v'kiyonu l'zman. I said, well, it's not the first time you're lighting candles. And she says, yes, it is. I said, no, it's not. Backwards and forwards. Eventually I said, no, let me just explain something to you. Your whole life you've lit candles. You may not have done the action of lighting the candles, but at the end of the day, someone else did, such as your mother. She had you in mind, I hope, or you were included in the household, or whatever it may be that we'll discuss. So you lit candles. You just didn't do the action yourself. Or for example, this is maybe more negay to the item over here. The boys go away for Shabbos Kodesh. So we're talking about a place that's good for the ruchnias, good for the gashmias. Comes back refreshed, comes back Sunday morning, he's refreshed after Azar Shabbos. Valdik, after that Heilige Koach Soif, how could you not have Azar Shabbos, right? Yodov Maskim. Okay, so Kaponim, so they come sometimes with the shilas. With all the shilas of Shabbos. What do we do about this? I remember one time there was a group of Bachrim, not from here, not from here, from a different yeshiva. And they were spending Shabbos on the beach. I know it's crazy, like who would do such a thing? Spend Shabbos on the beach. And the problem was that they wanted to make sure of other Yidden, they wanted to make sure that they weren't going to be over on the Ramah and Soif Simon Rishon and Zion that says, B'Shem the Rishonim, that if you don't eat hot food on Shabbos, you have to check your yichus, it could be an apikovis. So Kaponim, what they wanted to make sure they had chicken soup. So what they did was they built like a little bonfire. Mama took a bunch of wood, put it on the beach, and they wanted to put their pot of chicken soup on that to make sure that it was going to be nice and warm for the Seder Shabbos Kodesh. The shaila was, does it need a blech? How do you make a blech? All of a sudden, all the shailas that, okay, most yeshivas are not negaya, I don't know who's discussing these things, but at least in some yeshivas they learn these things. We have to know, what's a blech? How does it work? So, I'm cool with shailas. I don't remember a guy calling with the shaila of, how does it work with Hadlokas Neighbor Shabbos? It's not negaya to me, right? It's not a gate to me, Yankala. It's not a gate to us. It's very for the barber. It's very for the other side of the mechitza. It's not a gate. This halacha is not a gate to us. Rabbi say that it's very far from the emes. Let me just read you, and then we'll begin. Be'ez Hashem. I want to read you the words of the Shulchan Aruch, the Heilige Tzvas Aruv. In the Shulchan Aruch over here, in Simon Reish Samach Gimel, you can look it up, see base. And the reason why I'm reading it inside is that you can believe me. It says clearly, Echad ha'anoshim ve'echad ha'noshim chayovim liyos bevateim ner daluk b'Shabbos Kodesh. I added the word Kodesh. But Al Kaponim, that's what he says. Shulchan Aruch says that this is a chiyuv on men and women to light. Now you're right. Maybe the women have kedima. And Mishabur discusses what happens if the husband says, no, this week I want a light. No, woman comes first. Why that's so? But talking for the chet of Chava, okay, not for now. But Al Kaponim, there's no shayla about it. It's negay to every single one of you. Number one, when you're in yeshiva, whether you live in this building upstairs, or you're in the dira, or you have a different dira, Baruch Hashem, finally, and therefore, you have a chiyuv of Hadlokas Neighbor Shabbos. Number two, you go away for Shabbos. Whether you rent an Airbnb and the oilam, chip in for the Airbnb, you have a chiyuv of Hadlokas Haneiros. Number three, if you go away for Shabbos to your aunt, to your brother-in-law, whatever it may be, and you go there for Shabbos, you also have a chiyuv of Hadlokas Haneiros. The question is what to do in those cases. That we'll get to. And by the way, this also will help with shalom bayis, because when you get married, your wife may ask you shilas. And if she asks you shailas, you can't say, I know the Gemara in Baba Kama, I know the Gemara in Sukkah, there's a Tosfos. It's not going to help you. It's very beautiful, but it's not going to help you. You need to know halacha. You need to know halacha lemaisa. So that's gavaldik. So we're going to be learning some of these halachas the next few days, which I think is important. I don't think this is a shayla we've discussed. I don't think this is a shayla we've gone into. I think it's important for the olim to understand where the chiyuv is, how to fulfill that chiyuv be'ez Hashem. So let's begin just with a couple of agdomas today. First of all, agav, is it a doraisa or is it a drabonon to light Hadlokas ner Shabbos Kodesh? So there is a Medrash Tanchuma, moyudik Medrash Tanchuma. The Medrash Tanchuma, by the way, it's a Parshas Noach. The Medrash Tanchuma brings, which is also a Gois Maimoni, which is also a Yereim, Mitzvah Kuf, which is also a Elya Rabbah, which is also a Prima Godim, all hold that Hadlokas ner Shabbos Kodesh is a Do'oraisa. Where they learn it from? Ayin Shom. You look over there, there's plenty of homework, I can give you Marmakomas. However, Lemaisa, the Rambam, and others in Hilchos Shabbos Perikei, which is Be'etzem a Tshuva in the Rashba, in Chelik Dalet Siman Reish Sadihei, which is a Meiri, a Modcha, and which is Azoi Paskin Alocha Lemaisa in Shulchan Aruch, and the Heilige Balatanya in Shulchan Aruch Harav, that they paskin that it is a durabonon, which is our psak la'alocha la'maisa. It is a mitzvah durabonon, but you should know it's a choshev mitzvah durabonon. That's a mitzvah that has somehow been preserved, even amongst those that are not from. Right? There's stories of Spanish cleaners that people had in their homes. A Spanish cleaner. And she saw the woman lighting candles on Friday night, and she says, oh, I remember my grandmother doing this. She used to go down to the cellar and light these candles on a Friday afternoon. You have a problem if you use her as your Shabbos goy, because she may not be a Shabbos goy. It's an amazing thing how Hadlokas ner Shabbos has been preserved even by people who are not the most religious or even any religious. For example, Yadua, that the Zman of lighting candles, and by the way, we'll talk about it even for men, there's a tefillah that Eid Paliyot brings. There's a tefillah that a man can say when he's fixing up the neighbors, when he's setting up the candles. It's a very important time of davening, especially for a woman. To daven at the time of Hadlokas ner Shabbos is gevaldik. Where does it come from? So the Gemara tells us in Shabbos Chof Hei Amud Beis. The Gemara says Hadlokas ner Shabbos Chayva. Also steht the Gemara. Hadlokas ner Shabbos Chayva. And the Gemara says Chof Gimel Amud Beis in Shabbos Harogel B'nei Avyon Bonin Talmidei Chachamim, which of course is Chanukah and Shabbos Kodesh. The reason for that is Kineh Mitzvah V'Torah. When a person, through the mitzvah of the Ner, he gets the Torah. So it's a gewaldige opportunity, says Rashi in Shabbos Chof Gimel Amud Beis, for a person to be mispalal for his children and for his own Torah as well. It's a zman of tefillah. I'll tell you a murder kamaisa, Rabbi Say. Ready for this maisa? It's a gewaldige maisa. So you do the kamaisa, but it's important to hear this one. When the state of Israel was first formed, so Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion and his cabinet, who he had just recently appointed, selected those amongst him, those that were close to him, in order to form the first cabinet of the government that they had in those times. And he selected a Yid called Zalman Oren. Zalman Oren, he was a Yid, completely not religious, a very respectful person, very secular, but very sincere Yid, who had no shaykhs to Yiddishkeit, he had no shaykhs to what it means to be from. His name was Zalman Oren. So he took his job very, very seriously. He was in the cabinet that David Ben-Gurion first, appointed him in the state of Israel. Came along Zalman Oren's wife, and Zalman Oren's wife, who was also, of course, secular like her husband, but she had this custom that she lit candles every Friday night right before Shabbos. As it got dark, before it got dark, maybe it was before, maybe it was after, I don't know, but it was sometime Friday afternoon, she had this custom. That was the only thing that she did that had a connection to Yiddishkeit. And she did, like her mother did, she closed her eyes, put her hands in front of her eyes, and she started to daven. And she prayed. It was the only davening she did the entire week. And she davened. What did she daven? She davened that her children should be great Jews. Now, she only knew one great Jew, and that was David Ben-Gurion. That was the greatest Jew in her eyes, was David Ben-Gurion. That was someone to look up to. That was her role model. So she prayed and she davened every single week that her children should be as great as David Ben-Gurion. Okay, And that's how it went. Now, we're all familiar with the idea that at one point David Ben-Gurion met with the Chazon Ish. Famous meeting with the Chazon Ish, what they discussed, what they said, not for now, but they had a meeting with the Chazon Ish. Ben-Gurion comes back from this meeting the Chazon Ish. Okay, this is the first time he's been exposed to a Frum Yid, a Tzaddik, a Godel Ador, and he comes back and he calls a cabinet meeting. And he says various things, but one of the things he says is, I met this rabbi, mamash, an angel in a human body. Like, wow, he was so impressed. He went on for minutes and minutes discussing this Chazon Ish rabbi in Bnei Brak that all of the Frum Jews follow, like unbelievable angel, like wow. So this guy, Zalman Oren, comes back from the cabinet meeting and he tells his wife about what happened. Obviously, he can't, reveal the confidential information that went on in the meeting. But he said, David Ben-Gurion was so impressed with this rabbi in Bnei Brak called the Chazon Ish. They never heard of him. The rabbi called the Chazon Ish. Wow, unbelievable angel, amazing person. So the wife takes it in. That Friday night, she changes her prayer. She changes her tefillah. And she now davens for someone that her role model thought to be even better than himself. And she now prays and davens that her children should be as great as this rabbi in Bnei Brak called the Chazon Ish, that she had never heard of, never met, never saw. But if Ben-Gurion is impressed with him, I'm also. And that's what her weekly tefillah was. Every week, my child should be as great as this rabbi in Bnei Brak called the Chazon Ish. Now, this story that I'm telling you was related by Rabbi Baruch Heyman. Rabbi Baruch Heyman, a Rav in Yerushalayim, a huge Talmud Chacham, involved with tremendous amount of organizations in Torah, and the grandson of Mrs. Zalman Oren. So we see the koyach of tefillah, but we also see the koyach of tefillah b'shas Hadlokas Haneiros. So Hadlokas Haneiros is an opportunity for ourselves to daven, for ourselves, for our Torah, and for our children. Now the Rabbi said there's a lot to discuss. We have huge amounts to discuss. We have to discuss what the chiyuv is, why it's a chiyuv, how to makayim the chiyuv in yeshiva, how to makayim it when we go away, what to make sure of, some of the hidurei mitzvah Be'ez Hashem. Join us Be'ez Hashem tomorrow as we go through some of the halacha l'maisa in this Gevaldi Union. Have an amazing day.